Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope that this finds you well. Welcome to this live webinar hosted by Just Right Reader. My name is Terry King Hunt, and I am very happy to have each of you joining us today. Please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from, what district you represent, and even share with us the role that you play in your district. I'm going to jump and see if the chat is working. I want to see if you can be the first in the chat so I can say hello to you and welcome you. Hello, hello, hello. Please introduce yourself. Let me see who's going to be first in the chat. There we go. Stephanie from Florida. Hey, Stephanie. I am happy that you are here and that you are learning with us. I see you, Dr. Stephanie Niehaus from Hot Springs School. She is the district superintendent. We have some really good folks in the chat. I am excited. We have some really good folks in the audience, y'all. Heather Franks from Searcy. She is the principal at McRae Elementary School. And Leslie Nelms. Yes, thank you guys so much for introducing yourselves in the chat. Thank you for joining us today. I am thrilled that you are here. Now, listen, we have a jam-packed day, so I'm not going to take up too much time. I am excited to be joined by our VP of Partnerships, Pam McCauley. And before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items that I want to share with you, okay? So the first thing is that this webinar is being recorded. And I don't know about you, but anytime someone says that, I take a big, deep breath and I take a sigh of relief because I absolutely love learning and I love to take notes. But when I know that it's being recorded, I put my notepad down and I just take everything in because I know that I'll be able to go back and watch again and take my notes when I can pause and stop. So I will tell you right now that this webinar will be recorded, and within 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, you will get the recording so that you also can go back and get all of the little details as you pause and stop and go back and listen. Also, if you have comments or if you want to share your thoughts, please type those in the comment section right where you are right now, giving us all the hellos. But if you have a question, please put those questions in the Q&A section so that when we get ready to answer those questions, we can highlight them so that everyone can see them. So just those few little things will help us to really get all of the learning in this experience. And like I said, today I am joined by my good friend, Pam. She is the VP of Partnerships, and if you've ever had the opportunity to meet her, you know that she is a wealth of knowledge. So I'm so excited that she is here, and she is our VP of Partnership at Just Right Reader, and she is going to introduce some very special individuals who are also here with us today. So, hi, Pam.
Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for that wonderful welcome.
I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I have the absolute honor to introduce two ladies who you're going to have a treat with today. Gail Bean and Joey Trejo from Hot Springs School District. Both of these ladies, they are instructional facilitators there in Hot Springs. Both are science of reading trainers. And I have had the absolute pleasure of working with them both this year. And from the very beginning has just truly been a joy. They jumped full force in this year and they put classroom libraries in their classrooms across the district to really support their teaching for the science of reading and supporting those learners with decodables that match the phonics curriculum that they were using in the classroom already. We do those alignments. And not only that, They also have really blessed a lot of learners across the district with our take-home decodables through the year. And I'm so excited to see you present today, to kind of hear a lot in detail and see your photos and videos that you have to share. So Gail and Joey, thank you. And I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Pam. Good morning and thank you. My name is Gail and this is Joey. Together we serve as the Hot Springs Literacy Instructional Facilitators. We're excited to share with you our journey in enhancing literacy through the implementation of Just Right Readers. This approach has transformed our literacy culture, and we're thrilled with the opportunity to elevate literacy within our district.
In our district, we've implemented a comprehensive literacy approach, which includes foundations as our phonics instruction, our main phonics instruction for K through 3. And we also use wit and wisdom to develop higher level skills. But as we began to look at our students' needs and data, we realized that we wanted books in all the kids' hands, because that's really how we really learn to read, right? We need books in hands. So it became apparent there was a gap in that availability. So some of our classrooms were stocked better than others. And so that's how our journey with Just Right Readers began.
In the Hot Springs School District, we recognized a critical need among our diverse student population, many of whom come from families facing economic hardships. Understanding the importance of access to books for early literacy development, especially for our children in grades pre-K through 3, we formed a partnership with Just Right Readers to address this. Our goal was to ensure that every student had access to books, regardless of their home circumstances.
Fortunately for us, our administrators were fully on board with this initiative. Actually, Dr. Nate, who's on with us today, she brought this back to us and shared with us, and we just took a hold of it and ran with it, and it's been great. So we were able to not only purchase classroom libraries for our students, but we were also able to purchase the take-home readers, because a lot of our students don't have access to books at home. So one really great feature offered by Just Right Readers is the customization of reading materials based on student data. So we use a cadence in our district. So when we give our students that test, we were able to upload that data to a platform supplied by Just Right Readers. And this enabled us to tailor the take-home readers to the students' needs and what they needed. As a result, the reading materials align with each student's individual needs, and it maximizes their engagement. And also it fosters that learning culture with the student and with the parents at home.
The why behind our implementation. Our primary goal of implementing Just Right Readers was to enhance our classroom libraries with grade level decodable books. We went through observations, we did walkthroughs, and we identified critical need for more decodable resources within our teachers' libraries. We recognized that having these grade level decodable books was something that we lacked in our classroom libraries, and we wanted to ensure classrooms from pre-K to 5th grade had text to support students' literacy development.
When students get the take-home packets at school, it's like a big, exciting day. And some people really celebrate that by doing different things in their classrooms, but the students are really, really excited. So they stay at school with the students, and they read those books with the teacher and through partner reading in different ways. So they get really familiar with reading those books before they go home. And then when a new packet comes in, the packet that they've been practicing actually goes home with them to share with their families. And so we hear so many great stories of success from our families at home. And we even get pictures and all kinds of different things and videos of how well their students are in reading now, because they have this resource that they can use and share and build that connection for reading at home.
So our usage in our district. So in our district, the classroom library's primary objective was to ensure students have easy access to decodable books within their classroom environment. As shown in the photo, so if we could call up our photos, we integrated these decodable books into the existing book baskets, which also contain geos from Wit and Wisdom, additional grade level texts, and books chosen by students themselves.
We also have some pictures of small group instruction. So let's take a peek at some snapshots of teacher-led instruction and partner work in our centers. Now, small group instruction is based upon data. By using Just Right Readers, we found that their resources align with Foundations, and they give you that alignment. So it made it really easy for our teachers to use and line up. It makes it seamless for students to dive into text that reinforce what they're learning in class. But that's not all. Just Right Readers goes an extra mile by offering a lesson plan for each one of those decodable books that has been really great for our new teachers and all of our teachers, actually, that want to use that so they can know exactly how to go through that book if they need to.
To extend the learning beyond the classroom, we provide take-home packs for home support. Our parents are empowered to connect with their children's classroom learning by accessing these resources. The accompanying video guides that are on the back of the book that they scan helps guide them through the targeted phonics skills and enhances that collaboration between the home and school. So for in the classroom, we have a short video clip we're going to look at to see how it's integrated within. In this first clip, a first grade teacher discusses her experience and how she effectively uses these resources to implement and support her literacy development with her students. Can we go ahead and play that first film?
Just Right Readers we use because they are decodable. It makes my students a lot more successful. We begin by going over these target skills and the decodable words. We review high frequency words. As we go through, students are allowed to decode one page at a time, and then we choral read after we finish that to help develop fluency.
Great, thank you. Now let's hear from the second grade teacher we have in one of our schools. She discusses her approach to incorporating Just Right Readers into her classroom practice.
Clack, click, clack. What did she say?
She said click, click, clack.
Because it's a, what kind of?
Exclamation.
Yes, exclamation mark. Good job. All right, front page. Ooh, there's another word that we highlighted. Whose turn is it? Yours? Nope, not was. Ooh, I'm glad you made that mistake. So glad you made that mistake. Because when we see the word was, when we see the word was and we see the word saw, what do you notice about both of those words?
They switch
Go ahead, Cameron.
around.
Go ahead, Cameron. Do they all have
They
the
rhyme.
same? Do they rhyme? Do they have the same vowel and ending sound?
No, but they
Do they all have the same letters?
Yes.
Okay, but are they in the same order?
No.
No, so we've talked about this. That's why it is important to look at the order of the letters, okay? So was starts with a W, but saw starts with a S. Okay, so what is that word, Cameron? That we just highlighted. Saw. All right, go ahead.
Wind, saw,
That's fine.
and land
Mm-hmm.
on the can have heat.
Good. It's got a suffix. Yep.
You got a big one.
Good job. All right, freeze. Oh, there's another.
Okay, in that clip, you just saw a teacher, one of our first grade teachers using Just Right Readers, and her main focus for that day was on high frequency words. So the books can be used for all different purposes or whatever skill that the student needs to work on. We also use the books to teach connected phonics skills for fluency practice. And the books are great for continuing to learn a phonics skill that they're already practicing through Foundations every day. So it can continue with that because it aligns perfectly with Foundations. Or we can also use with a different group, you may need to go back and reteach some skills using the books that maybe a student didn't master yet with Foundations. And so they get more practice in that. And the great thing is we're seeing the transfer of the skill because we're not just teaching that skill in isolation. We're teaching it through using the book. All
right, our next little video clip that we're going to show is at home support. We're going to see how the teacher, from her firsthand experience, how the take-home packs are utilized to support learning beyond the classroom. She explains the implementation of these packs and their impact on promoting at-home reading engagement. In the school district, they've asked for the parents to send us in their videos of them and their pictures of them and their child reading our Just Right Readers, or any book that they choose to read at home. But we're going to go to that clip now, and we're going to see how this teacher experiences it.
The take-home packs, when we get our new books every month, I tell them what their focus is, and they take those home, and I make them really excited about their new books. And I ask for my parents to send me pictures of them practicing, and when they do, I try to give them a little reward so that I know that they're being used at home and they're working on the skills that they need at home.
Okay, and the next little clip that we have, I was scrolling Facebook one night and I'm like, oh my goodness, one of our parents has posted a picture of them using Just Right Readers for her pre-K student. So I took that clip off, with her permission, I took that clip off of Facebook and I said, hey, can I use this? Like, we wanted to share it out with our people in our district, and we were just so excited to see this clip on Facebook just by chance. And so will you go ahead and play that clip for us now?
Sam. 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 This is there's Sam. Sam. Oh, read the word. Matt.
Good job.
Game.
Okay. These examples highlight, the effectiveness of at-home support. We want to reinforce, reading skills and fostering the literacy growth with our students. So we were really excited to see parents posting these videos online.
We were thrilled to have you here with us today, just to catch a glimpse of what happens in our classroom on a daily basis. These brief snapshots only scratch the surface of what incredible progress that we're seeing since we started our Just Right Reader journey. We've noticed a significant shift in our students' enthusiasm for reading and a noticeable increase in parent involvement. Before we bid you farewell, we'd like to leave you with a little special treat. Our district commercial, it was a collaborative effort with Just Right Readers that we share with our parents at the very start of this journey. It really shows the spirit and excitement of our literacy initiatives, and we hope it leaves you feeling as inspired as we are, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Hello, families. I'm Lily Allison with the High Springs School District, and I have Jordan standing here with me. We are so excited to share how, together, we can support your child to become a strong, confident reader this school year. There's a lot of research about the science of reading, and the best thing you can do with your child at home is read together. Your child has been given their own pack of Just Right Reader decodable books just for them. When learning how to read, your child needs lots of practice. Every time your child reads one of their Just Right Reader books, they are strengthening their phonics skills and accelerating their reading achievement. These books were especially chosen for your child. They're fun, colorful, and tell stories that get kids excited to read and keep reading. Plus, every book comes with a short and fun video that teaches a phonics skill. Just scan the QR code on the back of the book to watch the video in English or Spanish. Have your child keep their Just Right Reader backpack full of books and bring the power of reading everywhere they go. When you're waiting in line, on the bus, at the park, before bed, every bit of reading counts. We can't wait to hear about your child's favorite books. Happy reading!
I just love seeing all of the ways Just Right Reader is having an impact on students. We are seeing this impact all across the country. And the way that educators are applying these research-based best practices to accelerate reading achievement is truly amazing. So kudos to you, Hot Springs team. Great job. We're really excited. Everybody's giving you kudos in the chat. So thank you so much. Pam, did you want to say anything real quickly?
I just want to say, I mean, what you put together here and seeing it all happen, because of course I see it from the backside, and you just make me want to come and kind of spend a lot of time in your classrooms. Your teachers are modeling definitely best practices with using decodables. Kudos.
Kudos, kudos, kudos. And today we're going to get to continue to add to our knowledge base as we dive into the topic of improving literacy for all students with Dr. Laura Tortorelli. And I'm excited because we all get to continue to learn together. And every single time I get to hear Dr. Tortorelli speak, it is always such a treat. So Dr. Tortorelli is an associate professor of elementary literacy in the Department of Teacher Education at Michigan State University. Dr. Tortorelli's scholarship integrates quantitative, mixed methods, and research practice partnership approaches to investigate how texts, technologies, and teacher knowledge shape reading and writing instruction, with an emphasis on foundational skills and implications for policy and practice. Like I said, I always love learning with Dr. Tortorelli, and I am certain that you will too. So without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Tortorelli.
Thank you so much for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Greetings from Michigan. I bet it's a lot warmer where you are. You're just getting, oops, sorry, we are not, let me get back to the front here. Okay. We are just starting to have spring up here in Michigan. But as Terry said, I am an associate professor of elementary literacy, and I teach our future teachers how to teach reading. And I also do my own original research on the best ways to teach beginning reading in schools. And so I'm going to share with you today what we've been learning here in Michigan about the science of reading and how best to implement it, including some of the misunderstandings that we have around reading, and also some of the and the science of reading, some of the myths that I think we need to combat, and then also some of the implications for the curricular materials that you use in your district, how to choose them, and how to decide how to supplement them. So I want to start by just by talking about what is the science of reading. I know that in Arkansas, there's a big push for the science of reading and adopting new science of reading curricula, and that there are lots of resources available to you. But sometimes that kind of stuff gets pushed out without actually looking behind the hood and thinking about what we mean when we talk about the science of reading. So I wanted to start by talking about the research base that underlines these instructional practices and materials and why they're effective. We know that they are effective, but I think it's really important for practitioners to understand why we're doing what we're doing. So when we're talking about the science of reading, what we're talking about is a body of research that has gotten to the core of what happens inside the brain while a child is learning how to read. So we're looking at studies, decades at this point of psychological and neuroscience and cognitive psychology research that has looked at the physiological process of learning to read. And it's really miraculous. We have a lot of insight about what's happening inside our heads as we're reading. But this is not what we think of as classroom research, right? This is stuff that's happening in laboratories. Some of these are eye tracking studies. Some of these are what we call event-related potential studies, where we're studying what's happening inside kids' brains. So this is all stuff that we're really examining the process of reading and learning to read from a psychological lab-based perspective. And so you can see this from some of the absolutely foundational pieces of the science of reading. They're published in, scientific journals, psychological journals, neuroscience journals. But when these authors write about the science of teaching reading, you'll see that their titles are quite different. They say things like, how should reading be taught? Lost in translation, challenges and overcoming the science, reading science and educational practice. and pragmatic challenges. So sometimes we talk about the science of reading like we have all of the answers in this body of research, but in fact, even these neurosciences themselves would argue that they don't know everything about the teaching of reading, that there is something that there's an additional step that research needs to take to help us connect what they're learning to classroom practice. And that's where I come in. I study the science of teaching reading. And here's a good example of why these two things are different. I'm sure everyone's seen the sample view of reading before. The sample view of reading is one of the best researched models of reading out there. There have been hundreds and hundreds of studies that have validated this model for predicting reading comprehension. And so what the simple view of reading says is that if you have a reader and you can measure their decoding ability, their ability to recognize the words on the page, and you can accurately measure their linguistic comprehension or their ability to understand language when it's presented to them, then you can predict their level of reading comprehension. That's all this model claims. It has been validated hundreds of times across multiple different languages, but that's all it's saying. It's a measurement model, right? It tells us how we can predict how well a reader will comprehend based on their decoding and their linguistic comprehension. But it doesn't actually tell us how to teach those skills, right? It doesn't tell us which decoding skills are the most important or how kids learn how to decode. I've definitely seen people try to treat it as a developmental model, so that's saying, we're going to teach decoding first and linguistic comprehension later, but that's not really what it is, right? It's trying to capture what it is, how to predict reading, but it doesn't actually tell us what to do in our classrooms. So today I want to talk about a couple of other well-known pieces of research that do shed insight into how to teach beginning reading, and talk about how children, and really what I see as a 3-step process that children go through in the elementary grades by which they become really good word readers and really proficient readers. So the first step is orthographic mapping. The second is connecting to meaning. Third is building reading fluency. So I'll talk a little bit about each of those steps. Again, this is not new, probably. You've probably seen this to most of you. But this process of orthographic mapping, this is based on Linnea Ayres, others as well. It's really important kids slow down and pay attention to each letter and sound in words as they are beginning to read. When kids are first starting to read, they try to do all kinds of different things. Linnea Ayres research has documented this as well. They try to look at the first word and guess. They try to look at the picture and guess what's happening. But in fact, what's going to help them develop into strong, proficient readers is to pay attention to the letter and sound connections in each word that they're reading. So in that video we just watched, the little girl slowly found out Sam and Matt. That's the orthographic mapping process. So she has to look at each letter, figure out what sound that letter is making in that word. And by connecting those two pieces, she's going to be able to store that word in memory, and it's going to be a little bit easier to recognize the next time she sees it. And it's going to be a little easier the next time. And eventually she'll be able to write it use it in her writing and spell it as well, because she's made these connections in her memory. And so importantly, this is true for words like cat or mat, but it's also true for words like rock, when multiple letters represent just one sound, or irregular high frequency words like said, where AI makes it an unusual sound. All of these words are learned through the process of orthographic mapping. So sometimes kids are able to do this independently, like that little girl that we saw once she's learned the letters and sound. Sometimes they need some help figure out some of the more unconventional letter sound correspondences in those high frequencies. But either way, they need to be paying attention to every letter in the word to do this process of orthographic mapping. And that's step 1 in becoming a really good proficient reader. But step meaning. Learning to read in accordance with science reading doesn't mean that we forget about meaning. In fact, all words have meanings. Almost all words in English, even a really simple word like rock, can mean a stone. It can be a back and forth motion, or it can mean a type of music. We want to make sure that they're thinking about it in that word is appropriate for the reading or writing activity that they're doing. We don't want them to just decode words in isolation. We want them to also be thinking about what that word means and the different types of meanings that might be appropriate. And then finally, they need to do this over and over and over again in order to build reading fluency. By coding, orthographically mapping these words and connecting them to meaning, that strengthens the lexical system, the lexical memory, and makes it easier for them to recognize words over time. So when kids first start reading, like we saw in the video, children are decoding words really laboriously, right? Because they're doing that orthographic mapping process for the first time. But over time, as they've mapped more and more words and become more and added those to their lexical memory, they are able to stop using so many intentional resources focused on decoding. They're able to reallocate all of those intentional resources to comprehension. And that's what we call reading fluently. So the goal of reading is not to keep kids in this decoding phase forever, but to help them get through that phase so that they are recognizing words automatically and effortlessly and able to get really lost in a book and have that really pleasant experience. And so those are what we find is that kids who have strong reading experiences at the beginning of their elementary grades are much more likely to have success throughout school. There's a decoding, kids who have built up their reading fluency and their proficiency and can, to a certain level of decoding ability by the end of 5th grade, are able to go on and have really meaningful and productive reading experiences in the secondary grades. But kids who don't do that work often have difficulty increasing their comprehension skill after 5th grade. And we estimate that, and the researchers at Educational Testing Service estimate that about 38% of 5th graders are not at the level that they need to be to go on to have productive reading experiences in middle school and high school. We also know that kids who get really good, high quality science of reading aligned instruction in the early grades are less likely to be diagnosed with reading disabilities later on, and they are more likely to be able to graduate from high school and continue on in school. So this is pretty important. These are the key experiences that we want to make sure kids are having. But like anything that's becoming popular on social media, there's a lot of myths sloshing around about the science of reading, and they might be different in Arkansas than they are in Michigan. But here are some things that I hear when I work with teachers here in Michigan about the science of reading. And so if you don't mind in the chat, let me know if you've heard any of these rumors about teaching aligned with the science of reading. Number one, teaching aligned with the science of reading makes students hate reading because it's boring. Number two, teaching aligned with the science of reading is only appropriate or has only been researched with white middle-class English-speaking students. Number three, teaching aligned with the science of reading means adopting specific programs. And if you don't have that program, you're just out of luck. Has anybody in the chat, let me know if you've heard any of these rumors or rumors about the science of reading in your area. Mm-hmm. Might not be able to see the chat right now. Hold on. Scrolled up in the chat. All of the above. All of the above. Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's go ahead and see which one. So what I would say, I don't know if any of you have played Two Truths and a Lie. We're going to do a similar thing here. There are two of these are true, two myths and a maybe. So two of these I think are not true, not even remotely true, according to the research. One of them is maybe true. So in the chat, go ahead and make a guess about which one you think is definitely, which ones you think are maybe true or can be true. All right, now we'll do my answer key. All right, so the first one, teaching aligned with the science of reading makes students hate reading. This is not true. I'm sure you guessed this since I'm presenting on the science of reading. This is not true. I mean, we just saw it in the videos in the classroom. Teaching aligned with the science of reading can be exciting, engaging, and it can support kids. And this is what the research says as well. Teaching aligned with the science of reading actually lays the foundation for reading motivation, self-concept, and enjoying reading throughout school. So what we know from the research is that students start school motivated motivated to read. When you ask a kindergartner what they want to learn in kindergarten, they say they want to learn to read. And there's no correlation when they first start between their reading ability and how much they love reading. They feel like those two things are separate things. They love reading and they're still learning, and they feel okay about that. Unfortunately, over time, what we find is that those two things become more highly correlated. So every year that kids go through school, their reading motivation becomes more highly correlated with their level of reading skill. So over time, if they're not good readers, they're much less likely to love reading, and vice versa. And the reason this is you need a lot of reading practice to become a better reader. And so kids who feel like they're pretty good readers are more motivated to try it. They get more reading practice, and then their skills improve because they're doing more and more reps of that orthographic mapping, right? That's how they develop that reading fluency. They're also reading more and learning more from, because they're connecting those words to meaning so they're learning more about the world, which also supports their comprehension. So over time, what we see is there's a virtuous cycle for kids who feel like they're pretty good readers early on, because they get more reading practice and then feel good about themselves as reading, then do more reading, then increase their reading achievement. But kids can also get on the other side of this cycle and go the opposite direction, where their reading achievement, they don't feel very good about themselves as reading, so they avoid reading, and then they get worse at reading, and then they're even less motivated to try reading, and it can go in the other direction. So it's really important for kids to be supported in their reading skills early, because that's what sets them off on this virtuous reading, this cycle. So here's an example that I've created so we can just have a sense of what it feels like for kids who don't have very good decoding skills trying to read a text. So that, just for some background knowledge, this is the Japanese katakana alphabet, which represents syllables and words that have been borrowed from a foreign language. So if you want to do more research about that, there's a little QR code there. So here's a text in which some of the more challenging words have been replaced with katakana rather than to read this, and type in the chat what you think this passage is about. All right, what do you think this is about? Do you have is this a fun reading experience for you, even if you can figure it out? Mm-hmm. So this is about hurricanes. So I think but this first word is equator. So the equator is a a dividing line along the earth. So you can see that not being able to decode words really slows you down and actually makes the experience of reading less motivating and less fun and engaging. And not to mention impede your ability to make sense of the text. So if you're a kid who's having trouble with decoding, you're going to just keep working your way through the text page after page after page, and it's all going to feel really slow and laborious. So that's not how we support students' reading motivation and self-concept. And in fact, what we find is that kids who are having difficulties comprehending also have a lot of self-doubt about reading. The same number of kids who, for example, are not reading at the proficient level at the NAEP, the same number of kids also say that they don't believe that they are good readers and that they don't believe that they can comprehend what they read. So it's not that there's skill and motivation as separate constructs. The two things actually work really well together. The second, back to our answer key, I know that most people said that all of these were false, which I think can be true and ideally is true. But the second one I hear a lot here in Michigan in our more diverse school districts, they're worried that the science of reading is not culturally relevant and appropriate. And I have this as a reason for being concerned and for being careful, but that doesn't mean that it has to be true. So in fact, teaching in line with the science of reading should and must include culturally and linguistically diverse students for equity reasons. We can't leave them out. And what I understand where this concern comes from, because if you go back to those foundational reading scientists that I talked about at the beginning, they're they all look very similar, right? They are older white men who, because that's who was in the field doing this work, who were cognitive psychologists at the time when this work was done. But fortunately, that's not true anymore. And even these researchers included multilingual students in the very earliest studies of, for example, the simple view of reading. One of the first studies on the simple view of reading included was focused on bilingual Spanish-speaking and English-speaking children. So it's definitely, but more recently, we have lots of fabulous scholars of color who are engaged in reading research and trying to shed light on the best ways to teach in alignment with the science of reading for diverse populations. In fact, there's a piece by Julie Washington and Mark Seidenberg. So it's one of these like foundational reading science folks with a fabulous Black woman scholar at the University of California, Irvine, which talks about the best ways to teach reading to African-American students and students who speak Black dialects. So this research is really coming forward. This was a critique that I think was more true 10 years ago, but we actually have a lot more data to support the best ways to teach the science of reading to diverse students now. And so one of the things we know for a fact that there's a lot of similarities between best practices for more diverse classrooms. So for example, systematic and explicit phonics is supportive of students of all backgrounds, and many of the same components and programs are effective with different populations. However, one of the things that Julie Washington's work and others have highlighted is that it's really important for diverse populations to make sure that we are connecting the phonics instruction to language and meaning, and that there's lots of opportunities to make sense, to write, and to read real texts, and to sure that we are in progress monitoring and making sure that we're supporting these students with equitable assessments. So when we're working with diverse populations, we know from research that we do want to help students connect letters and sounds in words they know, but we don't want to let dialect or accents or multilingualism be an obstacle for this instruction. So that means we don't want to change or fix children's speech, and we don't want to their language or make them change the way they talk to participate in the phonics instruction. Teacher, and where I was recently an associate editor, showing an example of what this looks like. So for example, if we're trying to get kids to segment a word into its phonemes to work on their phonemic awareness and support their orthographic mapping, one kid might pronounce this word field, or the teacher might pronounce this word field with 4 phonemes. And they would say there's 4 sounds in this word, and I want you to write 4 letters to represent, 4 or 5, I want you to write letters to represent all 4 sounds in this word. But a child who speaks a different dialect might not pronounce the final D sound. They might pronounce it feel. And so when they say this word and segment it, they might hear only 3 sounds. And it's really important to just acknowledge that when your students speak different dialects, and not say like, oh, this way is right and this way is wrong. But you hear it this way, I hear it this way. There's actually a D at the end of that word. So when you see it in print, you'll recognize that. You don't have to say it the way that I say it to read it. Mm-hmm. And so finally, coming back to our answer key, as it predicted, the third bullet, teaching aligned with the science of reading means adopting specific programs. That is also a myth. And the fact is that teaching aligned with science of reading can be done with any high quality material. So there's a lot of different programs out there that all have different advantages. And the thing that I want to, and I know I've worked with a lot of different school districts who are trying to adopt new materials right now. There's new sources of funding, there's pandemic recovery, there's legislation in a lot of states mandating specific curriculum. There's a lot of frustration with some of the curriculum that have been used in the past, and also a lot of pressure from social media to get this choice just right. So I want to say that the research does not show that there's one right curriculum that you have to have. There now that you can use to evaluate the research alignment. So some things that I've used with districts include the Ed Reports criteria, the Reading Lead guidelines, and the IES practice guide. These are all links to I have links to all of these. And these can help you decide if a particular curriculum is aligned to the research on the science of reading. but none address how culturally relevant the curriculum is. And so there's a whole nother rubric from NYU Steinhardt that can be used to figure out if these materials are going to be appropriate for your population of students, if they're going to address and be inclusive and validating to different sorts of identity. So that's something to think about as well. I want to switch to talking about the books, though. There's a lot of different ways to teach phonics. It sounds like many of these districts are already using Foundations, which is fabulous curriculum. And I know there are a lot of other programs that have been adapted across the country as well. But research focuses on it, and I want to make sure we're thinking about when we're the materials is what the students are reading. Many of these tools that I shared with you and many of the processes that I've been a part of to evaluate curriculum have really focused on the teacher-facing materials. Like, is the are the materials good? Are the phonics lessons well laid out? Is there a good scope and sequence? Do I need to come up with a bunch of material lesson plans myself, or is everything sort of there for me? That's all great. But something that we don't talk about enough is what books are being put in front of the students. There are sometimes really great programs that have maybe one or two books that the kids can read that align with them, or that don't really specify what kids are reading in the rest of the literacy block. So I want to make sure that when we think of that, a particular lens that we look at curriculum through is the books that the kids are reading, the things that they have the eyes on. And whether or not this supports orthographic mapping, connecting to meaning, and building reading fluency, those 3 steps that kids have to go through early in their reading process. And something that I like to think about is an old story about Van Halen. You can mention in the chat if you've ever heard the story of the brown M&M test. But basically, when Van Halen would have a very long contract that was, I think, about 50 pages long with lots and lots of details about how everything had to be set up. But line item about saying that in the dressing room there needed to be a bowl with all the brown M&Ms removed. And this was a famous story that was told about him that was sort of like, oh, rock stars, they have so many, they were just so finicky. But in fact, what he said was that he wanted to make sure that every venue that he went to had read his contract all the way through, because he had pyrotechnics and he had heavy machinery, and it could be very dangerous for him and his crew if they weren't actually adhering to all the different things in the contract. So he could walk into his dressing room, look at the bowl of M&Ms, and know if they had followed the rules, or if he was going to have to go back through and check everything. And so here are some things that have emerged from my research around beginning text for beginning readers that I think of as brown M&Ms, things to avoid in your curricular programs. And the first thing, this will be surprising to very few people, but leveled texts. We want to make sure that if you have a program that is primarily leveled by numbers or letters, research doesn't support that. And even more so, research does not support grouping or labeling children by level. Right. So when my son went to kindergarten, I got a letter home saying he was a level D. And that's really not supported by research. What we know is that kids can read a lot of different texts if they have the right support and the right instruction, but they can't be assigned to a particular level. And in fact, that raises some equity issues as well if they're not allowed to read beyond that particular level. And we want to make sure that, and so what happens oftentimes is I'll see a district that is adopting the science of reading, has a great phonics curriculum, but they still have these leveled texts hanging around because there's just nothing, they don't know what to do with that reading time. So kids will get a great phonics lesson and then they'll go over and read a level D text from the level D bin. And the problem with this is that my research, as well as others' research, has shown that that level texts that kind of have those holistic leveling systems like A, B, D, or 1, 2, 3, they don't attend to the word difficulty. They're leveled primarily by overall text difficulty, and that includes a lot of different variables like syntax and picture and how supportive the pictures are and how repetitive the structure of the text is, rather than paying attention to how difficult the words are to read. But as you know, what we are trying to support support with beginning readers is their orthographic mapping. And so if they can't slow down and decode the words, like we saw that little girl doing in the video, then they won't be able to read the word, to process that word, map it, connect to meaning, and store it in their memory for future use. So they won't be able to make reading progress if they aren't able to slow down and actually decode the words in the text. So this slide shows a table from a study I did with Freddie Hebert, where we analyzed 510 level text from 3 different curricular programs. And you'll see that the levels are A through J, so kindergarten through first grade are at the bottom. And then this along the side is the difficulty on a scale of 1 to 5. And what we found, and these are 3 different variables that indicate how hard the words are. So the blue variable is the frequency of the words. High frequency words are it's very important for kids to to learn their high frequency words, and the more high frequency words the text has, the easier it is. As you can see, there's no difference between a level A and a level J text in how many high frequency words the text has. Like they start pretty hard and they stay pretty hard as far as the frequency of the words. The next line here, the green line, represents how decodable the words are in the text. And you might notice that it starts halfway through the decodable scale. So even a level A text, which is designed for a kindergarten reader, is already half up, is not starting at the bottom level of decodability. They're starting at 2.5 on a 5-point scale. So that's a problem right there. But also you'll see that the level C texts are harder than the level D texts, and our statistical analyses indicated that there was no difference between across these different levels between the beginning and the end of kindergarten and the end of first grade texts. They were the same. There was no statistical difference in decodability, even though they creep up a little bit on average. There was so much variability in each category that it didn't matter. And then the yellow line is the vocabulary difficulty. Remember, connecting to the meaning of the words is still really important. And those also started very high and got a little bit more challenging over time, but really words are not the things driving level text. In fact, the number one predictor of what level a text was assigned to in our analysis was how long it was, just the number of words rather than the difficulty of words. So what we know is that kids who are reading level text are not able to do that orthographic mapping and connecting to meaning most of the time with the words. They're able to kind of get through them using other strategies, and they won't be able to then advance their reading development. We've also found is that not all decodable texts are the same. Freddie Hebert and others have really questioned how don't make sense because that connecting to meaning piece is really important. And there's also a history of using decodable text in classrooms that are not culturally relevant or engaging to students. And so you want to be careful about replacing one kind of text with another if they don't support orthographic mapping and connecting to meaning and having a good reading experience. And so is really authentic and culturally relevant texts that are matched to in the instruction so that students can build that reading fluency. I saw them doing some fluency supports in the instruction in the video as well. That's what is going to help kids build up their reading proficiency over time and have really fluent and meaningful reading experiences throughout. And then finally, one more thing that I have also looked at in my research is digital books. Oftentimes, where they try to they're kind of frustrated with their level text library. They're not really sure what to do. So they just put them on a digital reading platform. These are very popular. And I've done a research project around how these are used in classrooms and also a national survey looking at how teachers use digital books. And my doc student, Amy Edlison, and I found was that most of these digital reading platforms are just leveled text by a different name. So they're trying, they're really not providing a different or more engaging reading experience. And almost always they include words that kids can't read independently. So they end up just listening to the books read aloud, which is fine. I mean, read alouds are important, but generally that isn't going to help them do that orthographic mapping, connecting meaning, and building fluency. So when you see kids with the headphones on, reading on an iPad, that's something that can be entertaining, but it isn't actually going to advance their reading of development as much as like books in the hand that they can actually read. reading real books at school is the thing that's going to make a difference, but teachers have to make sure that they're connecting their instruction to those books so that kids are able to do the orthographic mapping, connecting to meaning, and building reading fluency in those books. We don't want to just teach a really good phonics lesson over here and send kids over there to read a book that's not connected. And so that's what my research has been about. And what we know from both of the science of reading research and from my research and others on text is that kids need that high quality word level instruction that we're always talking about with the science of reading, but they absolutely need lots and lots of opportunities to practice and to support reading those words in real text. So I'm going to pass it back over to Pam. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Laura. Oh my gosh, like always. And even knowing that it's going to be recorded, like Terry told us we didn't need to do, but I'm always just constantly, learning from you and writing mad notes. And I hope that everyone here got that as well today. Thank you, Laura, so much. And hopefully stay on in case there are some questions. If I could just I want to highlight, kind of bring it all together, highlight a couple of things for you that you're here today. Won't take more than 5 minutes. I want to be really in value of your time. So when we see the way that Hot Springs was really able, those ladies were really able to show us. They showed us what that implementation looks like. They showed us what it looked like for those classroom teachers using those classroom libraries that are aligned to their core curriculum. And if we can go, I don't know, do I have control there of the slide deck, Terry? Yeah, I think that I do. So we have more decodables than anyone on the market. We are over 700 titles. So talk about, having this broad spectrum of decodables that you're able to use in your classroom and send home with your students. And then culturally relevant. I mean, we have really done that work there. Our books, your kids are going to see themselves in our books. They're beautifully illustrated, authentic and culturally relevant. And we do all of that at the same time as we really are holding true, and we have a lot of value in making sure that we are in alignment also with your state statutes. So there's various state statutes across the U.S., and we really hold that in high regard and keep you safe there. We have a really robust phonics scope and sequence that's available on our website, and I'll share that website in just a moment. Each of the decodables, one thing that you might not have seen was that each decodable has a phonics skill that is the focus of that decodable. And at the same time, a phonics video lesson. This is kind of our secret sauce. That video phonics lesson that's on the back of every decodable, you kind of saw that highlighted on the video, the commercial that Hot Springs shared, that they were scanning that QR code, and that QR code is a video phonics lesson in both English and Spanish, and it has to do with the phonics skill that's taught in that book. So we have over 700 titles. Every title has its own unique QR code to really help you strengthen their phonics skills. Here are those alignments. This is just a snapshot of some of the alignments that we have. We do have more. If you don't see your district core curriculum on here, and I know across Arkansas and the rest of the U.S., there are districts who have many. They'll have a tier 1 core, a tier 2, a tier 3, some really specific uses, and so you may have 3 or 4 of these. So we have 2 products, and you saw those. We have our classroom libraries that we have from pre-emergent all the way through high interest, which would really be applicable to your 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students. Those are a little bit taller and slimmer. They have a lot more text in those. And so you can see just a little snapshot here of the differences that you can see. Those show you, the little bubbles show you how many titles we have in English and how many titles we have in Spanish. And you can buy those as a class pack so that you do get that multiple practice. You have your partner reading, you have your small group instruction, you have them at centers. And so that's how we can make sure that you get those in your classroom. And then of course we have our take-home decodables. So we do align with your data. We aligned like Hot Springs shared, we aligned with Acadience. We do iReady, Dibbles, STAR, NWEA, you name it. If you are using it to progress monitor, that's the data that we want to use to really personalize these packs for your students. That's where you're going to see a big impact, because your students are getting these packs of 10 decodables that are at their independent phonics level. And you saw them practicing at home. And it really takes that to really build their skills. What we're seeing across the board and hearing from districts is that they are seeing a significant, and those are the words that they use, a significant growth in their automaticity and their fluency. And that's just the beauty of kind of combining our classroom libraries with that take-home experience. We let the teachers know in that packing list what which students got the same groups of decodables, the same packs, so that you can create some small groups even based around those take-home decodables. Lots of different ways to purchase. If you don't see a way that you would want to purchase on here, you just let us know. We customize these. The most popular really are 5 rounds or 11 rounds. So those 5 rounds would be your summer, get one for every week of those, for those summer learners of summer school or a summer academy or a summer camp. And then you can also use groups of 5, we call it a school break pack, during the school year, so that each time that those students are going home, they're going home with a pack of books, again, aligned to their independent phonics level to keep that practice strong. And then like Hot Springs did, they did the 11 rounds. It's just a really, we call that accelerating phonics, so that's a year-round program, and those students are really getting those packs every 2 to 3 weeks. They showed you our video, and so that's just something fun that we get to do with our partner districts. So if you partner with us for either your classroom libraries or your take-home decodables, we send a video crew in and help you create that commercial that you can give out to your community and to your families. Our resources, a little glimpse inside our pre-emergent set that also has some dry erase pages that help support the letter formation. So that they're practicing at the same time they're writing as they're learning the sound for that letter. It really strengthens their skills there. We have our new Spanish libraries, like you saw on the library, and our brand new board books for babies from birth to age 3. Those are just a really beautiful book that we really have held true to our features that we have in our decodables, as far as the QR code on the back. That's really an encouraging partnership with that new parent or caregiver. And then we're also teaching some sign language in those books. So I think that I have gone a few minutes over. I do want to draw your attention to our website, justrightreader.com. You can get, a lot of information there, but I'd really rather you just reach out. Easy, it's Pam at justrightreader.com. And I would be happy to meet with you and really kind of get you connected here with some of our either classroom libraries and the take-home decodables.
I love it. I love it.
That was so quick.
I know it goes by really quick. And also, if you've enjoyed the learning that we did here today, I also want to invite you to our next webinar that's going to take place tomorrow. If you want to hear a little bit more and learn some more, we're having another one. You can register for that. But I want to make sure that we take some time for questions. If there are any questions that you have for the ladies with Hot Springs, if they're still here, or for Dr. Tortorelli, just go ahead and quickly drop them in the Q&A and we'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. If not, then I always take that as a good sign, ladies, right? If there are no questions, then that means that you were very thorough. Everyone has a clear understanding and we all walk away with new knowledge and information. So if there are no questions, we'll give them a little chance to type in the Q&A. I want to just say thank you to Dr. Tortorelli for being here. I always love it. Thank you, ladies from Hot Springs. I love to see all the amazing things that are happening in our districts and the way that you just beautifully brought it together. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. You make our job easier, right, Pam? They just make our job easier. We just have to show up and look cute, So I thank you guys so much. It doesn't look like we have any questions, y'all. So that's a good thing. Again, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for all of you who joined us in the audience today. You guys were a fabulous audience. All of your interaction and feedback was beautiful, and it made the learning a whole lot of fun. In the chat, you have Pam's email address, so reach out to her. Let's continue to accelerate reading achievement, and let's get our kids reading. Until next time, happy reading, y'all. Bye-bye.